On today's show, the Hawks will have a close eye on the Pacific Division this time around, in particular, the Kings and the Lakers. We'll get into all of that, plus more over-unders with myself and Robby Kalland, and it's coming to you right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1812 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you over the weekend here, heading into a new week in early October. And today's podcast is coming to you from the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. Begin the season with a big return at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to tell you at the top of the podcast, as I always do on the show, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you happen to find your podcast. That includes Apple and Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Please like this episode as you're watching it, and please subscribe on that platform. Today's show, we'll be diving into the Pacific Division with myself and Robby Kalland of DIME. And this is a pretty interesting division, and honestly, pretty easily the second most consequential division for the Hawks this year, because it includes both the Lakers and the Kings, with Hawks fans monitoring those teams all year long for draft purposes. If you didn't know this somehow, the Hawks have the Lakers pick unprotected, and then a potential to get the Kings pick as well in a 25 NBA draft. In fact, I mentioned it once I brought in Robby in a second, but I also should plug in the shows that I did with Anthony Irwin on the Lakers and Greg Wissinger on the Kings in recent days for more depth on those two teams. And we'll talk about that again here. But again, this is a pretty consequential division for the Hawks, and that's kind of the tie-in on today's weekend episode heading into Monday. And by the way, the Hawks play a preseason game on Tuesday. We're getting closer and closer to games. This one doesn't actually count, of course, but I'll be in the building. It's preseason, but there's plenty to take away. I'll do probably one more podcast episode between now and then to kind of let you know what to watch for in that game on Tuesday, and a little bit of a catch-up / preview. But the Hawks are off on Saturday, so as I'm recording this podcast heading into Sunday, nothing new to report on the practice front. So, yeah, anyway, without any further delay, we'll dive in now to the Pacific Division. Again, we'll focus heavily on the Kings and Lakers all year long, but here we go with more over-unders with myself and Robby. I'm joined again by my good friend Robby Kalland for Division 3 of 6. Robby, how are you?
Doing great. Lovely Friday when we're recording this. Who knows when it goes up? But
that's right.
Here we are.
I held the Southwest for too long and had to give like 3 caveats before I posted it. So I'm going to try not to do that this time around. It's like, oh, half the teams had a guy got hurt in between the recording and when we actually posted it.
Yeah.
But alas, here we are. It's the Pacific, the final division in the Western Conference of the 3 that we'll be talking about. And kind of a weird one, just to foreshadow a little bit, all 5 teams are separated by only 9 wins in the FanDuel projections, and no one is above 47.5. So let's begin at the top with that team that's at 47.5, the Phoenix Suns, who won 49 games last year. That was appropriate based on their peripheral metrics. They had kind of a busy summer, but not a huge summer. Tyus Jones, who the Hawks were tied to for a brief moment, and Monty Morris, the same player in some ways. Interesting. Then a bunch of rookies. Ryan Dunn, my crush from last year's draft. And then they also lose Eric Gordon and David Roddy to the Hawks. Drew Eubanks. So not a ton. But they were basically pretty good, and honestly pretty good when their 3 guys played together. And when they didn't, they weren't. And that's not a huge surprise based on this roster.
Yeah. I mean, I think you nailed it there. I do think they got better. Like
I'm just
kidding. They didn't have a point guard last year, and now they have a couple. Like they just genuinely just did not have anybody play point guard. That wasn't Devin Booker and I guess Bradley Beal. I have lean over on the Suns, and it's for all the reasons that you would expect. I think they're better than they were last year. They won more games than this last year. I think they're on paper a better basketball team. Another year with all these guys together should yield some better results, less kind of early season hiccups, all of that. But do you want to trust all these guys to stay healthy? I don't particularly. And so I lean over. I don't want to be financially invested in Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal's health. And Booker's been banged up the last couple of years too. So I do think there are reasons to be optimistic about what the Suns team can be. And I think in terms of like a threat in the West, like if they're healthy, they're not a team you're going to want to see. Still not totally sure they have the defensive, I guess, ceiling, especially in terms of rim protection and all that. KD's really good as like a help side guy. I think he's really underrated in that aspect, but otherwise, like, do they have the upside to win a title? I don't know, but they certainly have the offensive upside. And I think, I guess the one thing, if you're a Suns fan looking for like, where can we really take a step forward with these guys? It's like, I think what Devin Booker did in this past Olympics and getting recognition for playing a lesser role in the way that he did is legitimately important for them, because he saw that you can get those kind of accolades and you get talked about, in the way that he did. Steve Kerr called him the MVP of the team. Like that sort of thing for a star who has always been a star because he's been able to get buckets, learning that you can get that kind of love for playing defense, for taking a lesser role and doing what the team needs. I think that's important for this Suns team because they have three guys that all can kind of, go get it. But it's like, can you be the connective piece? And like, if Booker's willing to do that in key moments, I think that could be really, really important for this Suns team come playoff time. Again, that's more of a playoff conversation. But I do lean over on this team just because like they're really good. And I think Tyus Jones genuinely helps them a ton. Just because like they didn't have anybody in that role last year.
Yeah, I'm also leaning over, and just to bring a little sprinkling of Hawks adjacent talk to this. This is a team that has Mike Budenholzer coaching it.
Also, Bud wins in the regular season.
Yeah, Bud seems to win, and I know there's been, and you'll appreciate this, of course, as we covered those teams together in Atlanta. There's been this thing I've heard in the media about like how Bud had this like defensive talent in Milwaukee, which is true. I mean, you have Giannis and Brook, I get it, but like, people have seemingly forgotten that Bud did a completely different defensive build in Atlanta when they were playing small with Paul and Al in the front court. Yep. Like, you don't have to. Bud is not required to have a 7-foot center. He had Brook Lopez.
Not system dependent.
No, not, especially on defense. Like, I think he likes his stuff on offense in certain different ways, but just want to push back on that a little bit. That is something I've heard. It's like, no, Bud's very, very flexible defensively, and I think he's shown it in pretty two distinct different ways on different teams. And I think, while Frank Vogel kind of got a raw deal, I thought, in Phoenix, honestly, but it's still, I think, a little bit better than Frank Vogel. So that's not a downgrade of nothing else, even though, kind of a weird situation there. So, yeah, we seem to agree on lean over, but I'm 100% with you. Durant played 75 games last year, and you can't pick on that.
No. He
might do that again, but I wouldn't bet on it. So we'll leave it there. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something that happens to scare you in your life? For me, it's that I'm afraid of heights. It's always been that way. It's been that way forever, really, and I'm not sure it's going to change, but it's almost Halloween as well. That can also let us have fun sometimes with what scares us, but what about those fears that do not involve zombies or ghosts or heights, etc.? Sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back as a result. Therapy can help for everyone. That's why you should check out the folks at BetterHelp. You can learn positive coping skills and how to set better boundaries for yourself. Also, at BetterHelp, you can be empowered to be the best version of yourself. I know I have my own stresses in my life that I deal with, and we can also benefit from getting stuff off of our chest sometimes. If you think about starting therapy, BetterHelp is the place to go, and you should give it a try right now. It's entirely online and designed to be flexible and convenient to your schedule, and that's huge for people like me who are navigating time crunches and different things in their lives. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time if you want to for no additional charge. Take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. One more time, the place to go is BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. This is one where the Hawks are very tied, and I've already done a separate episode about the Sacramento Kings because the Hawks have draft considerations there with Greg Wissinger, good friend of the podcast. But they are at 46.5 on FanDuel. With the juice to the under, admittedly, but 46.5. They, of course, bring in DeMar DeRozan, in addition to a couple other guys, Jalen McDaniels, Devin Carter, who they drafted, who is hurt. They lose Harrison Barnes and some other guys. Davion Mitchell experiment is now over. My biggest thing with them is how good are they on offense, which is going to sound weird because they were number 1 in the league 2 years ago, and last year they were just pretty good. So that's kind of for me where it comes down to. And I don't know what you think about Sacramento. We haven't talked about it. So where are you at on the Kings?
Yeah, I think this number's right. Like, just to be perfectly honest, I think this is mid-40s is exactly where they should land. It's where they were last year. It's kind of where they've been. It really comes down to how quickly it all comes together, because I think there's a chance that they are a really good, solid team that by the end of the season has figured out how all the pieces kind of fit together. I think DeMar DeRozan gives them a thing that they need, which is a connective secondary creator between De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, because as we've seen, when teams kind of load up on Fox, as good as Sabonis is as a passer, it's more of a kind of connective passing. It's not you don't give him the ball as the hub and have him create for everybody else, right?
Yep.
He is a good passer, but it is not in the same way of in those big moments, if you funnel him the ball, their offense takes steps back. It just does. And so DeMar gives them another guy that can create, another guy that can create his own shot, another guy that can work a little pick and roll, handoff stuff with Sabonis. And that, I think, is going to stress defenses in a really interesting way. It's how quickly can that come together. I talked with Domantas last week for an interview that just ran on Dime. They already did 2 weeks of workouts, just him and DeMar, to kind of figure out how they work with each other. Because that was something that I even asked him. I was like, y'all kind of operate in similar spaces. DeMar is a post for a post wing. He is mid post, get the ball, face up, do all that. Domantas kind of likes to operate in some of the similar areas. And he admitted he thought that they were going to step on each other's toes. And he was actually surprised at how quickly they were able to kind of figure each other out and get out of each other's way. If that's true, I'm a little bullish on them. I'm with you. It comes down to how quickly this offense can gel. But I lean over, and I said it when I did it with Sam, I lean over in part because as you mentioned with Greg, I like a lot of Kings fans. I want the Kings to be good. I would not invest in the Kings over. There's so many good teams in the West. But I like this team. They took a big step forward defensively last year, which is kind of what happens with Mike Brown teams. I don't expect that to be a fluke. But I'm with you. It's how much can they balance that step forward they took last year with what was a drop-off offensively, and some of that was pace, and some of that was we're going to focus more on defense. Can they kind of find that balance? They can't be 16th on offense again, right?
No.
That isn't the recipe for 48 wins from this team.
Yeah, I think we're basically in lockstep. Other than I think I would lean under. Not apologies to Greg. I think I would lean under if you made me choose with my life on the line. If I had to pick over under, I would pick the under. But I would not bet this for all those reasons you just said. Also, they want to win. There's not any any incentive otherwise. It's just they're going to go feet to the floor. And I think that they were, on one hand, I always want to put this out. They were quite healthy last year. Yeah. But also, it's a lot of guys that don't really get hurt. Sabonis is very durable. DeMar is very durable. It doesn't seem unsustainable to me that they would stay that healthy.
Really Fox.
Keegan, Keegan Murray's been healthy in his career so far. Yeah. So that's, I know Greg mentioned it on the show we did, but they're internally hoping for a lot from Keegan Murray. I've always been a little lower, but he's a good player. He's already a good player. So I would lean under, but nothing drastically at all there. I think to your point, it's a good number at 46.5. And last year they won 46 games. It feels like what they're going to do again to me. I might, if you ask me to pick one win total for them, it might be 46, which means it's a stay away.
Firm stay away. The other thing with Keegan is I think the thing that benefits him with playing with DeMar is now some of that creative load gets taken off of his shoulders, which I think is where he struggled the most, is trying to do too much. If he can settle into a little more comfortable role, I actually think he can kind of bounce back and have a little better year.
We can go down to the Golden State Warriors. Interesting team. Doing them third in the division feels odd to me, but it's the order that they're projected in. They won 46 last year. Their over-under win total is 43.5 after a very busy summer. They add DeAnthony Melton and Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson, 3 adults, 3 good players, but they also lose Klay Thompson. Famously, they lose Chris Paul. the current version of Chris Paul notwithstanding, a helpful player, and then Dario Saric. They were pretty good when Draymond played. I will say that first. When Draymond played, they were like 51 team. When he didn't, they were pretty bad. And it's not all on Draymond, but what do you think of all? I mean, there's so many uncertainties. Like, what is Wiggins now? I don't know what Wiggins is anymore. I have no clue. You got Kuminga and Moody that are like in this contract year state as we're recording this. Like, it's all very uncertain. But at the same time, you have Steph and you have Kerr, and they got a little deeper, if anything. I think so.
This is another one where I lean over, and like I wouldn't hate somebody that wanted to take it. Like I feel decent about it. Like especially at 43.5, it was 44 at some spots. I obviously didn't like that as much. Like you said, like the thing about losing Clay is you lose obviously that production. He averaged 18 a game. He shot it well. Can they replace some of that spacing with Brandon Podziemski and like is Andrew Wiggins back to being able to knock down shots? Like, can they kind of cobble that together or whatever? Because like, I'm not going to pretend that Jonathan Kuminga is suddenly going to be like an above average 3-point shooter. It's not happening this year. That's fine. Even so, pretty much everybody agrees that like Clay was not fun to be around last year. And like really the last 2 years, coming back from the injury, wanting the contract, just kind of surly. And like, it's not that I don't blame Clay for feeling that way. Like, I think it was best for both parties to move on. I think that Clay gets to go to a place that clearly wants him, values him for what he is currently. And gets to go, like we talked about it with Dallas, like I think he's in a really great spot to kind of thrive next to what they've built in that system. I think he can be really good for them. I think he needed to leave a place where he still felt like he should be the number 2 guy. I think it's easier to go to a new team and accept a role as the number 3 than it is to accept somebody coming in and taking your place in a place that you built that place. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's so different than like, if you go to Boston, it's like, there's a history of like, they've just been good and they've had great teams. Golden State didn't have that. They built this thing with those 3. And you hear Draymond talking about it already preseason. He's talking about how like he feels like, yes, Joe Lacob, like you're the owner, but we own this thing. That's a hard thing to deal with mentally. And I think Clay just like the vibes were off. And that was always like a good vibes team. That was always teams that was running up and down. That was, like into it and emotionally into it. And last year, everything was bad. Draymond was bad. He's choking people out. He's hitting people in the face. He gets suspended. I mean, seriously.
That's true. That's all true.
Clay is over there surly in the corner. He's mad. He's giving weird post-game press conferences about like when he gets like benched in the 4th because he wasn't playing well or what. Like, it was all bad. And then you have Steph, who like, credit to Steph for having a phenomenal year amidst all that, because like it would have been really easy for him to get down on himself too. But like Steph, like you said, like this team got a little deeper. They added adults. They added guys that should fit in. Like Kyle Anderson is a guy Steve Kerr is going to love, right? Like that's a guy he's going to play small ball 5. He's going to be a connective piece. He's going to be used as like a dribble handoff hub with Steph. Like they're going to do all kinds of stuff with him, that he is just like an ideal weird 4 or 5 guy for Steve Kerr to deploy. Can they figure out what to do with Moody, who I still like? I still believe in him. I think he probably just needs a fresh start at this point.
Yeah.
Can Kerr trust Kuminga to just let him make some mistakes, but just trust him to go out there and be him? Because like he was good last year. He was pretty good. And especially that late in the year, like he was good. Can he do that for a full season? But like, I kind of lean over here, which I keep leaning over on all these teams in the Pacific, and I don't know if that's a good thing. I'm looking at my board. I only got one under.
Well, somebody will go under. We understand that, but no, we're in agreement there, because you can't assume this. Full caveat: you cannot assume this. If you assumed that Draymond and Steph played 60 games, even, I would be a firm over.
Yeah.
I'm more of a lean because of you can't assume that, particularly Steph's at the age where injuries just happen. and Draymond injuries plus craziness. Like, it's just true. And I very much value Draymond as a basketball player. I think he's still quite good when he plays. It's just, all things you said are right. I think the current version of Clay, what Clay was last year, and what Chris Paul is, as much as I love Chris Paul, he's not Chris Paul anymore. He's just not. He's still fine. He's still useful. But I think D'Anthony Melton is another guy that Kerr is probably going to love if he can play. I'm in on the Warriors, generally speaking. We'll see. But I would not bet the under. No chance I bet the under on them. I think it's too low. I just understand why it's that number, just because of all the Draymond uncertainty. But, I mean, yeah, injury is the only thing that would keep me away from just flat out betting the over on Golden State. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Football is here. Basketball is on the way. Start the season now with a big return at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Check out a ton of different information sets at FanDuel from the latest stats to live by play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets at FanDuel Sportsbook. You also get started with a great offer for FanDuel right now, and that's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You should also know that FanDuel Sportsbook app is really easy to use as well. They have all stuff you're looking for across the sports betting space, from over-unders and point spreads, money lines, live betting, same-game parlays, player props, future bets, and so much more. The app is safe. It's secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well at FanDuel. That includes the NBA, WNBA, NFL, college football, baseball, hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. And now is an awesome time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. You get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. One more time, just visit FanDuel.com and check out America's #1 sportsbook. We got another team now that I've done a podcast about also with Anthony Irwin. It's the Los Angeles Lakers. As a reminder, if people are finding this out of the Google machine on YouTube, the Hawks have the Lakers unprotected draft pick. So this is arguably obviously the Southeast Division, which we'll talk about a lot when we get there, will be probably our longest one of these because it'll include the Hawks. But if there is a team in the league other than the Hawks that Hawks fans will be watching the closest this year, it's going to be the Lakers. And the number is 42.5 right now at FanDuel. 42.5 at FanDuel.
It was today. 43 when I did it.
It has been bet down, to your point. They won 47 last year, but they also overperformed last year according to their metrics, all those things. Famously, and you could hear the pain in Anthony Irwin's voice as I talked to him about this, they just did nothing in the offseason. They didn't do anything other than draft Dalton Knecht and Bronny. It's basically it. They lost Taurean Prince, who played too much for them, but is a useful basketball player. He's not bad. No. That's kind of it. And they were very healthy last year. AD and LeBron both played 71 games or more.
147 games between the two.
And Austin Reeves played all 82, and D'Angelo Russell played 76. Like, those are their top four players, and they played 71 games or more. And while I know it pains us, the Darvin Ham experience was not well received in Los Angeles.
I get it.
But they now have a first-time head coach with zero experience. So you can't really bank on that being an improvement. I understand people are optimistic about JJ, and I kind of am too long-term. I think he's a smart guy. But there's no possible way to know. And generally speaking, even guys who are good coaches are not good coaches in October of their first season ever with no experience, because there's a learning curve there. You remember Spo? I mean, you and you remember the whole Spo? Like, they were going to fire Spo after like a month. Because LeBron was done with Spo after 1 month, and now he's the best coach in the league. So a lot of preface there, but I don't know what to do with this number. I really don't, as far as over-under. I know there's real downside. Downside.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But there's also some decent-ish upside, just because if they stay healthy, they're going to buy, I think. They're going to make a trade midseason if they are. If LeBron is healthy and good, and AD is healthy and good, they have to make a trade, don't they? I don't know.
How many years have we said this?
I mean, but
how many times do I have to listen to Rob Pelinka give some vagaries about what it's going to take for them to move picks? Well, if we can get I will believe it when I see it, when it comes to them trading picks.
I agree.
Who are they going to trade? Somebody impactful if it's not picks.
It's true. Just to give the Hawks thing again, they did get quite close on DeJounte. That did happen. I can confirm that was quite close, but they didn't do it. To your point, they didn't do it. And they don't want and they think Austin Reeves is like the second coming, and I don't quite understand that. He's a good player, but he's not as good as they think he is.
I think they listen to Vecini too much.
Maybe. Hi Sam. But no, I think that it feels like a total stay away to me on the over-under only. Like, there are angles if you wanted to explore FanDuel to attack the Lakers, I think. But as far as an over-under win total, I have no thoughts. I really would not. I wouldn't go near this personally.
Yeah, I had lean under. That was when we were doing it.
Sure.
At 43.5. That is where I needed another under on the board because I was looking at my list and I was like, uh-oh. 2, the 147 games of Anthony Davis and LeBron James. If that happens again, I would be shocked.
Same.
Just doesn't happen. They got worse. Like, Taurean Prince was helpful. Like, again, he was over leveraged, but he was helpful.
No, the
current roster is worse than it was last year.
Like, I didn't get there with Anthony because I was trying to let him talk. It was his. I wanted to have a Lakers person on, but that is what you said is 100% accurate. And there is no argument that the roster is better right now than it was last season. That argument does not exist because rookies are bad. Even if you're a big fan of Dalton Connect, rookies are bad.
I like Dalton Hooper.
They lost Taurean Prince, who again is better. And I know you know this, Robbie, but for fans, I would encourage people to look at the depth chart in the front court for the Lakers and see what's behind AD. They don't have anyone. If anything happens to Anthony Davis, they're going to lose every game.
Yes.
So, I'm slightly exaggerating, but they would be so bad with Anthony Davis.
Dude,
so bad.
They have Jackson Hayes and Christian Wood.
And isn't Christian Wood hurt? I think he is.
Christian Wood's already hurt. Which probably not the worst thing for the Lakers, but also they kind of need him, which is a terrible place to be in. By the way, those 3 contracts they handed out last year might be the 3 worst contracts I've ever seen. In terms of minimum deals, I have never seen more destructive minimums.
And they gave player options.
They gave 3 player options. They took a swing on 3 guys: Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood, and Cam Reddish, our old friend.
That's right.
All of them were bad. All of them picked up their player option because none of them would have gotten a deal. As we've seen, they would have been Exhibit 10 guys like half the league seems to be now.
Mm-hmm.
So then they couldn't even go replace the min guys that didn't work. They couldn't even get in on the min market because before free agency opened, all 3 were like, yep, please sign me up.
Well, they were full and their roster's full. And the only guy, unless you're a Jalen Hood-Schifino fan, which I didn't see it at all last year.
Max Christie?
I was going to say, he's the only guy that I think
we did breakout guys, and
they might get more from.
But he's also a guard. They have enough guards.
No, they do. And Anthony says on my show, but Jared Vanderbilt is not probably going to start the season healthy. Like, he's still hurt from last year, and he's like their small ball 5 option, and he's out.
He had foot surgery on both feet.
So I
announced it like 2 weeks ago. They were just like, "Oh yeah, by the way, this guy earlier this summer had foot surgery, not once but twice, both feet."
I understand it's the Lakers. It's big and shiny, and honestly, look, we've covered this, but probably 5 years ago, they would have had this number at like 46.5, and we all would have been like jumping to bet the under. Yes. They've, to their credit, FanDuel, this is a good line. I think this is a reasonable line in a way that it probably wouldn't have been in the previous Lakers iteration. But still, I wouldn't bet the over.
Well, it helps that Lakers fans are like dead inside about this team.
That is true. And also,
there's no longer the optimism. Like you mentioned, they're going to make a trade. That used to be how Lakers fans thought. They used to just like, we'll just go get somebody. And they did. Sure. They usually did. Like, to their credit, like there's a reason they thought that way. But like they haven't. They've been crying poor for 3 years now. They won the title, and then they've cried poor, and they've been afraid to move picks. And like, whether you agree with it or not, you can't do this middle ground stuff. Like, I don't know. It's
a stay away.
This is my Lakers rant.
Stay away. Lean
honestly,
under.
Lean under. Like, I agree. 42.5. Wouldn't touch with 10-foot pole. But
yeah,
dude,
number.
I don't know how you feel good about this team. I don't know how you go like, yeah, like This is
at least we're gonna hear a lot about them all season long, because that's a guarantee. If you follow the basketball media, be a lot of Lakers talk.
This is the reason I've been yelling like this. This is my audition for First Take.
Yeah, you're ready. I think you're ready. You're there.
I'm getting the energy up.
And look,
Trying to cash in, baby.
No offense to Anthony or people that I like that cover the Lakers.
Yes.
I hope I can call Anthony in January and start talking about the lottery for Hawks fans' sake. That'd be interesting. Little compliments of events. All right, one more team, and is the LA Clippers. They no longer share the same building as the Lakers.
That's right.
They have a new building. I can't wait to see it. So this is the weird one. Like last year, they won 51 games. I honestly forgot it was that many. I got to be honest with you, Robbie. I forgot they won 51 games last year. They did. This year, the current number is 38.5 with juice to the under. So a lot of things have changed. And that went down because of Kawhi. So let's start there. It was already going to come down no matter what. They lost Paul George. We know this. They lost Paul George. And my stat of the day on the Clippers, they were 15 points better per 100 with Paul George on than they were with him off last year, which is that's a big gap. But it was already low. Like I saw this number in the low 40s earlier this summer. It's 38.5 now, in part because they lost PG, but they also have Kawhi already had another knee procedure between Team USA and now. And he actually played a lot of games last year, 68 games, but then by the end, he was gone again. They were not very good without him, as you might expect. And they added to the team, like they brought in some guys who are competent. Nick Batum is still good at his age. Derrick Jones is a good player. Chris Dunn has been useful. Mo Bamba is not particularly good. But anyway, they have some depth, but there's a lot riding on 2024 James Harden on this roster.
That
and
is true.
That is not exactly where I would want to be if I was a team. The only other thing I would say on the positive side of Clippers is they do have a good coach. That usually helps. And they also don't have any incentive to try to lose. So there's that. But 38.5 is, man, it's a low number. Like if they get anything from Kawhi, I tend to lean over. But like this latest Kawhi update, I don't know how you can bank on anything from Kawhi. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I had lean over, but yeah, that was pre-Kawhi update, and like it's just, it's really bad. I mean, like I like I think they've got a decent roster. I mean, we've seen.
They do.
I guess what I would say is like we've seen the Clippers just kind of do this before with like not all their stars, and like they kind of put it together. And I think Ty Lue, there was this whole thing. There's this whole thing this summer about like Ty Lue's like re-energized and like all that. And maybe there's something to it. Maybe like you get kind of beat down by having the stars roll it out and play. And like maybe there's a chance that Ty gets to feel like he gets to actually scheme it up a little bit. I don't know.
Okay, fundamentally though, I'll push back. You're right. I get that. And they have a lot of guys I like on this team. Like they have a lot of like confident role player types on this roster that I tend to like. But what happens if Kawhi doesn't play? They have one shot creator on the roster, and it's James Harden. That's it.
I'm with you.
I mean, maybe you could say Norman Powell.
I was about to say Norman Powell disrespect.
I mean, Normal Chuck.
Like
I think you had the quote. I think Norm was like, what he gave a funny quote at media day. I can't remember what it was.
He said Paul George leaving was addition by subtraction.
It's like, oh boy, I wouldn't have said that.
It's Norman Powell time.
It's Norman Powell time, to be sure. But I mean, look, again, just to name some guys that they have that I like.
Please.
Terrence Mann, good player. Derrick Jones Jr., good player. Nick Batum. Abisha Zubac is actually quite good. Like very underrated, good starting center. Like they have a lot of guys that I think are competent. Chris Dunn's a competent player. He's a really good defender.
I like Chris Dunn.
But none of those guys are creating offense for you.
How dare you, Bones Highland time.
Bones Highland's A not good, and B, I don't think anybody wants him at this point. Sorry, Bones, but like it's not gone well the last like year and a half. Amir Coffey's a decent player too. Like they have a bunch of guys, so I think are okay. They're trying the KPJ reclamation project. I don't know about that. I would not do that personally, but so
thanks.
In the end, It's so low. Like this number's dropped so much that I can't
It's so low.
bet the under. Like I wouldn't. And I do think that if they get 50 games from Kawhi, this is an over for me. But we don't even know if that's going to happen. And at some point, Harden is not Harden anymore anyway. At some point, he's probably going to take another step back. And if that's now, it's going to be real bad.
He was really good in ISO last year. He was like 6th in the league and like ISO.
Yeah, he can still do it.
He still was kind of like sneakily, he was pretty good. So like, yeah, I'm with you. Like but this is such a big drop that like my what I have on the board is like a lean over. I definitely don't want to like invest in that with the Kawhi
I think I have
thing.
the same thing though. I think if I had to choose for my life over under, I would probably bet the over, but I don't want to at all. And if they had a different coach, like Ty Lue is it's funny, there's this Ty Lue has the rep and I think he's earned it. Like he adjusts like too late. Like he's a good coach. He like waits 2 games in the playoffs every series to do it to change his thing. Yeah. But he is good, so that helps. And I think that Harden, if nothing, Harden's going to do what Harden does, and that lifts. It is a floor raiser for you. He's a floor raiser. Yeah. So lean over, but move. Oh, I forgot this. They also signed Kai Jones. Boy, they are signing some guys. They are signing some guys on this roster. PJ Tucker's on his team. Guaranteed contract.
Still, because
he's my age.
He was mad that they wouldn't trade him or play him, but not mad enough to turn down like 12 mil.
I believe he's one of the like 4 guys in the league that's older than me. So shouts to PJ. He's holding it down for me. PJ, LeBron, Chris Paul. That might be it. Maybe there's 3. There's somebody else I'm not thinking about. There's only 3 or 4 guys that are older than me now, but he's one of them. All right, Robbie, this is a pretty weird division. We don't have a lot of strong. Do you have a best bet in the Pacific? Is there one you actually like? I think I know what I would give out.
It might be Warriors over.
I was gonna say the same thing. It's either Warriors over, or I think it has to be Warriors over. I think the other 4 are kind of stayaways for me.
Yeah,
I might go Suns. I might go Suns over.
Those are the 2. Those are the 2. But I think if I were to my power rankings of how I feel, all of these are the ones that I don't really want to bet. It'd be Warriors over, Suns over, Lakers under, and then like way down here is like Kings over and Clippers over of like the do not touch, but like I have to have a thought.
One thing I will say before we sign off, I don't have the number in front of me, and I should, so my apologies. There is a market usually by the start of the season. I don't think it's available yet on FanDuel, but there probably will be. If you could get a Lakers to finish last in the Pacific, I would bet that. Just saying.
Ooh.
Not that it's going to happen, but you're going to get some juice there, and I think they have probably the second lowest downside in the division, if nothing else, if not the lowest. If something happens to LeBron or AD, it's not going to go well for the Lakers. So if you want to fade the Lakers, in addition to their fading for the Hawks, search out a Lakers to finish last or Lakers alternate win total unders, something like that would be enticing. All right, Robbie. Thanks for giving me the time, as always. The West is done. We will pivot to the East in the near future. Anything to plug on the way? I know you already talked about your Sabonis interview. Anything good on Dime recently?
Got a little breakout players thing, picking somebody from each team. Bill and I for kind of a breakout season. Preview stuff, man. It's the season starting. We got all kinds of stuff.
Dimemag.com. Click around. Just go open it up and click everything.
Start clicking things. That'd be great. Keep me employed. At our Kalland, Punkcast rolling along. Subscribe. You don't even really need to subscribe. Just listen wherever you listen to Locked On Hawks. Subscribe, whatever. I don't get money for that. That's a passion project.
That's fair. That one's a fun thing. But anyway, thank you, Robbie, for doing this. That's for everybody else. Please subscribe to the show. We'll have Hawks coverage wall to wall all the way up until opening night and beyond. So please stay tuned. We'll see you all next time.